Bateman's Brewery Dark Fruit Porter.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. One here today from Bateman's. Now, I've just got one of their, they call it a starter kit, and it's got a selection of their beers in there, and it's good if you want to get into the range of beers that Bateman's do, because they are a really good brewery. I've reviewed a few of their beers on the channel, and I'm rapidly growing to like them a lot. Most recent one was the Vintage Ale. Now, if you've watched that video, someone complained it was an hour long, and he says, with respect, I am not watching a fucking hour-long beer review. Mate, I don't think I would either. It was just me rambling on, but it was a really good beer, and I think it deserved an hour. Both of them deserved an hour. But I do get you, mate. I fully respect that. Looking at a beer review, especially with this ugly bastard on there as well, it's not going to be for everyone, but respect to everybody who did persevere. But it's a really good beer. The two of them are really good beers, and I think an hour warranted just how good they were. So, yeah, apologies if it was too long, but for those of you who watched it all, really do appreciate that. It was a bit self-indulgent, but my channels, my rules. Anyway, all of that out of the way, I've got some of this stuff. Now, this was actually recommended to me by a subscriber, and they said that this is one of their favourites. Now, I've been doing a little bit of research about it, and it does look really interesting. It does contain natural fruit, which I do think has a place in beer if it's done correctly. Now, I do draw the line at these fruit cocktails that the American brewers are doing, and you may call it a bit hypocritical on my part because these beers do taste of fruit. However, this contains dark fruit, and yes, dark fruit has always had a place in beer, or should I say dark fruit flavour, certainly in English beer. That's a tradition, whether it be done with natural fruit or whether it's done with hops or even malt as well. Now, there's a big debate about, fruit flavoured beers and the legitimacy of them and all that, and personally, I'm not a fan of the American style fruit cocktail, as I say. Some of the New England IPAs I actually don't mind. They're not too bad, but you've just got to be sort of in that mindset, and it's rare that I crave one, to be honest. So yeah, when I first started reviewing beer on the channel, I did quite like them. However, I think when you go through that phase, and I've seen it on a fair few comments on here, people say that they go through the phase of drinking craft beer and I think it's great, but a lot of them come back to the traditional styles, which I think that's what I've done. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way to do things. I'm not saying it's the wrong. As I say, it's taste. It's all subjective. And if people like that style of beer, then I'm in no position to tell them that they're wrong. I'm in no position to tell them to stop doing it, because everybody has their own taste. I do get that. However, I'm not really a fan of the American style, as if I need to say that again. But I have had a couple of these fruit flavoured beers. Now, the Belgian style framboes and lambics I'm quite partial to. Certainly the Creek, the cherry beers that the various lambic brewers do. I love that sour cherry flavour. The framboes is the strawberry, the raspberry. Sorry, I'm not a massive fan of that. And if that's done incorrectly, it does taste really artificial, sweet, and more or less like an alcohol pop, and I'm not a fan of that at all. But in general, I think for me the only beer that I really do like in that style, the lambic style, is the Creek beer. The others, I think, they're so hit and miss, they really are. And then you do have the Belgian fruit beers as well, which they're just way too sweet in my opinion. The ones that spring to mind are obviously the Left stuff. You have the Castile, and they're not a bad brewer, they do some decent beers, but the fruit beer is it's just like a sugar fest. And Timmermans, believe it or not, a very, very good, well, one of the oldest lambic brewer in Belgium. They do a fruit beer that I've tasted recently, and yeah, not good at all. So fruit can be a bit hit and miss in beer. It's not really a thing in German beer, but you do find it in certain English beers, and especially porter as well. And that's what we've got here. It's a dark fruit porter. Now, dark fruit, as I say, it has a place. The flavour has a place in English beer, whether it be natural or whether it be contrived from the malt and the hop mixture. Personally, I prefer it from the malt and the hop mixture, but there have been fruit beers done, certainly by Samuel Smith. They do fruit beers. To be honest, I've given them a swerve. I've never tasted them because I think Sam Smiths have a tendency to use invert sugar, which I have absolutely no problem with whatsoever. However, if they use it with a fruit, I can imagine that's going to be really, really sweet. And I'm not a fan of sweet beers. It's rare that I come across a sweet beer that I like. I just don't have a sweet tooth when it comes to beer. I like sour beers, I know, but again, it's all down to style. Anyway, I am rambling. Bateman's, very good brewer indeed. They have quite a good portfolio of beer, quite varied. And they have a saying on their website, and it's fucking music to my ears. They say, beer brewed by people, not accountants. What does that mean? Well, I'm assuming that means they don't look at the cost. Well, they obviously do look at the cost. It wouldn't make business sense not to do that. But they're not penny pinching. They're not bean counters, as a lot of the macro brewers are. Everything is done to maximise profit. And I understand businesses have to make profit. That's just a given. That's the whole reason for starting a business. However, I think with Bateman's and a lot of other breweries as well, I think that the care that they take in brewing does show through. And it's interesting, I've just read, well, I read yesterday, Asahi have shut down Dark Star, and they've moved all the brewing to Meantime Brewing. I have to admit, I wasn't a massive fan of Dark Star beer. I really didn't think that they were that great. And I think they were brewing it in the Fuller's Brewery, or they were brewing some in the Fuller's Brewery. But what they've done is now they've moved everything over to the Meantime Brewery, which I think is still based in London. I'm not a fan of Meantime beer, hence the reason you will not see that on the channel. I did review it in the very early stages of this channel, and I wasn't impressed with it at all. It was very, very bland. And yeah, they may have come across initially as a craft brewer, but yeah, I just thought the beers were bland, very, very boring. And I actually got some of their beers for free. Now, this wasn't anything to do with the channel. Google, the company I work for, has a relationship with Google, and Google were supposedly doing this team bonding exercise. You know, absolute fucking nonsense. But they sent a memo around, and they said it's going to be a beer tasting. They said, send your address and we'll send you some free beer. And I thought, fucking great, I'm going to do that. Free beer, I'm not turning my nose up. Anyway, it all turned up, and it was Meantime beer. I didn't know it was going to be Meantime beer, and my heart sort of sank. Google, the fucking idiots, got the date wrong, and nobody turned up to the meeting, so I just thought, fuck it, I'll drink the beers. I drank them all in one night, and they were instantly forgettable. There was nothing there to make me ever want to buy Meantime beer again. I remember when I lived in London, they did trial, I think it was maybe the Meantime Lager. They charged a fucking fortune for it, and I did try one pint of it, and I thought, this is just for absolute bollocks, and for the price, I am never buying that again. So Meantime, I don't know what you're fucking doing. I don't know. I know it's Asahi that's owned you, but nah, you've lost your way. You don't know what you're doing. But again, this comes back to what I'm saying about, you know, Asahi. I'm not saying Asahi do this, but with Meantime, it appears they have done that. But anyway, that's completely off topic here. I need to concentrate on this beer. So, without further ado, before I ramble on anymore and you get another hour-long beer review, let's get this checked out. .500ml bottle. It is 4.6%. However, on cask, it's 4.4. It is a 500ml bottle. As I say, what is it? Our story is one of enterprise and innovation. Was always looking forward to remaining true to our family roots. After 4 generations, Bateman's is still fiercely independent. Honesty, creativity, and gritty determination fuel our passion for our beers. Black in colour and creamy in mouthfeel, Dark Fruits is a delicious porter with a backbone of crystal, chocolate, and roasted malts. Perfect for a porter. is packed full of delectable dark fruit for a slightly sweeter finish in this rich, nutty, spiced beer. All in all, the most Moorish of dark beers. Okay, now it doesn't mention the hops in here, but I have managed to find a brew sheet with the hops in, and it contains 3 hops. It contains Goldings. Well, Goldings are fruity hops as well, so you would expect that. Goldings are almost ubiquitous with English beers. They just complement English ales, top fermented ales perfectly, and it's rare. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare that you will find a good quality English beer without any Goldings in there at all. They're a great beer, along with Fuggles too. It contains Styrian Bobek, I think that's how it's pronounced. Styrian Bobek is effectively a stronger version of the Styrian Goldings. They are actually grown in Slovenia in a region called Zalek or Zalech, I think. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I've got a Slovenian mate. I call him a caveman because he is a fucking caveman, and he's got a square head as well. But he's always taking the piss out of me, so he's fair game. Yeah, he actually mentioned that the best hops were grown in Slovenia, and I thought he was on drugs. He mentioned this to me years ago, and I thought he was on drugs. And when I actually did some research, he did have a point. Actually, there are some fantastic, absolutely fantastic hops that are grown in Slovenia. When you hear of Styrian Goldings, it's mainly sort of the Slovenian and Austrian borders. They share that region, and they grow some great hops there, and that's where you'll get Styrian Goldings and all the derivatives as well. There are variations on that, and this is one of them, this Styrian Bobek. Final hop in here, of course. Well, not of course, you wouldn't know this, would you? That's what I'm telling you. Final hop in here is Challenger. That will give you a nice bit of spice on there as well. However, I do think me listing the hops here is a little bit moot, because I think that the fruits are going to dominate this. So, without further ado, let's find out. Right, I've got this glass here today. I don't know how clean this is, but we shall see. Alright, looking forward to all these. There's going to be a fair few Bateman's beer reviews, because, as I say, I've got that hamper and there's quite a few in there. So be prepared. I've got a few German beers to review as well. So watch this space. Alright, let's see what we got in here. Oh, masses of fruit already. Huge fruit. It smells like a fruity ice cream. Quite sweet as well, sweet smelling. And there's big blackcurrant, raspberry, forest fruits. If you've ever had forest fruit cordial, it smells a little bit like that. But there is a slightly bitter chocolate and coffee overtone on it as well. And it does make for quite a nice aroma. It's full of fruit, however, I'm hoping it's not going to be like that Cranbourne Poacher. That was just too over the top, too much, I don't know, well, it had too much damson in it, and that was just too sweet, too dominant, and it really didn't appeal to me that much at all. This is coming across as quite sweet, actually, but there's a creaminess to it, and I'm wondering it's coming from that crystal malt. That does give it like a sweet, creamy style aroma. It smells okay, however, proof is in the tasting. So, let's get it down the hatch. Bottoms up. Oh, there it is in the glass, just in case, before I do that. Very dark, but it is a dark ruby, almost Guinness-like in colour. Let's get it down the hatch anyway. Bottoms up. Actually, not too bad. I was right about the hops. There's no real hop character in this at all. This is just pure fruit with a little bitterness on there, roasted malt bitterness, a little bit of dark chocolate and coffee. That's what I'm getting. Thankfully, it's not on the scale of the Cranbourne Poacher. The sweetness on this is there, I'm not going to lie, but it's not, how can I put this? It's not overpowering. And when I get beers that are just too sweet, that's it. It just puts me right off, and they usually end up down ye olde sink. But this, at the moment, it's not grinding my gears. Fruit's really heavy on this, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the bitterness from the malts coming through. There's certainly the roasted malt and the chocolate malt. It's there, but it's really subtle. Head is not lasting at all for some reason, which is a shame. Could be the fruit. Any type of citrus fruit is going to murder the head on a beer. The body is a little bit thin, a little bit weak, if you know what I mean, but yeah, I think there's just a little bit too much fruit in here. And that fruit is gradually getting more and more dominant. It's dark forest fruit, and as it shows on the bottle there, if you can see that. Let me get autofocus doing its thing. This is fucking autofocus. Come on. How long does it take to focus? Focus, you twat. Come on, you can do it. Oh, you fucking dickhead. There we go. There's a little monitor. I have to touch the screen to get it to focus. But there, if you look at them fruits, so what have you got? You've got some kind of strawberry, raspberry, cherry, black cherry, or that's not grape, that's, what is it? Why am I doing it like? Yeah, that's sort of plum, raspberry. They're the type of flavours you get in forest fruits, really. Not just it mentions a spiced finish on that. I'm not really getting a spiced finish there at all, to be honest. If anything, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say sweet, but really fruity. That's a shame. That could have been nice. I think they've just gone overboard on the fruit. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of the porter character on this. As it stands now, I will say it's nicer than some of the Belgian fruit beers, because they've added sugar into their beers. I don't get the real sweetness on this beer. They've got that sweetness toned down, which I like. So it's not completely chucked down a sink job, but I don't know. I am getting some of the, it's weird because I'm just having a whiff here. There is definite roasted malt on the aroma, but it just doesn't come through on the flavour. Not really. Not getting the spice finished either. Or if it, yeah, it's very subtle, and you really have to concentrate. In a blindfold test, you'd say that this was some kind of, well, actually, I'm being a bit harsh. You probably would be able to discern that it is some kind of stout or porter, but the body's weak, the fruit is big, it's the dominant flavour on there, but it isn't that big that it's overpowering. It's subtle. Well, no, that's a lie. It's not subtle. It's a bit more bold than that, but I think it's just missed out with the roasted malt and the dark chocolate. It needed that to give it a bit more of a balance and a bit more authority to say that it's a porter, and it's not doing that at the moment for me. And the aromas are really misleading, because there is, if that was on the actual flavour, that'd be nice, but it's not. It's only on the aroma. Yeah, a little bit disappointing, I'm afraid. So what's the verdict on Bateman's dark fruits porter, I should say? Yeah, I think they've just gone over the top a little bit on the fruit. If you're a fan of that, don't get me wrong, if you are a fan of fruity style beer, dark fruit, then yeah, you probably like that. I find that a little bit sweet. Some of you may find that a little bit bitter. It's just got too much fruit on there for me. And the fruit doesn't taste artificial, I will say that. There's no real discernible invert sugar or sweetening sugar, as opposed to bittering sugar. Fucking hell, what are you talking about, you twat? But it just hasn't got the malt character that I would expect, the roasted malt character I'd expect from a porter. Now, some people do like these, I wouldn't call them novelty beers. This isn't quite that bad. Novelty beers I discern as full of sweetener, full of artificial flavours, and basically just like an alcohol pop masquerading as a beer. It's not like that at all. Not at all. I imagine it would be a nice change if you'd been drinking bitter beers all night, and you know you had this. This would be quite refreshing, but for me, it's not really my kind of thing. Is it Percy's? Percy, the fuck are you doing? And here's Captain Twat. What do you think of that, mate? He likes that, but he's not getting any because doggies can't have beer. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10, and I'm going to do it because it could have been really nice. It could have been, I think, a sort of 7 out of 10 beer if it had a bit more of that roasted malt character and chocolate on there. As it stands, it's just got the fruit for me is just too dominant on this, so that's why I'm going to give it a 5. If you do like your fruity beers, then yeah, you may like this. But for me, I think they've just gone a bit too mad on the fruits. But I can see that it may have an appeal to certain people who like sweeter beers. Personally, I'm not a fan. There you go. That's just me. And remember, beer is working class champagne.